Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and I've gotten into the habit over the last few years of going through my pile of opportunity, all of the models that I have bought or acquired in other ways and haven't gotten around to painting, because each one of these in all of these pots up here, they're an opportunity for me to sit down and do the hobby that I like, which is painting models. And of course, once they're painted, or maybe even if they're not quite painted yet, I can use them in various games, war games, skirmish games, and other things that I like to play. Unfortunately, this year I actually don't have a lot of time, and it's a lot later than I would usually start filming to organise the video, so it's going to be a little bit different from my previous years. Going to be perhaps a little shorter of a video, maybe not. We'll see how that goes. But a lot of these ones here that are down in the dark, dingy corner of my painting room, I'm not going to drag them all out and lay them out like I have done before, because that takes too much time, but I am going to count them. So anything that was here last year, they'll get counted, but they're not going to feature in this video. What is going to feature in the video is anything that's a new model. Now, what that means is that anything that I've bought in the last year and haven't painted is going to feature prominently. And anything that I bought more than a year ago is going to kind of be skimmed over. That said, in the past year I have painted some old stuff. Very recently I painted a Project Z biker, and I've had that on the shelf back here for a couple of years. And I looked at that and I thought, you know what? That is a cool model and I really want to get some paint on it. So I spent an hour painting that and had a lot of fun with it. In recent years, but not this last year, I've been painting a lot of bolt action models because I've been playing a lot of bolt action. And whenever I play a game, I enjoy I get excited about painting the models from that game. But this year, I kind of got it into my head that I wanted to focus on painting individual models and really painting them quite nicely. And that hasn't really happened, but the fact that I've been thinking that way means I haven't necessarily wanted to grab a squad of 10 bolt action World War II models and just batch paint them, knock them out, get them on the gaming table, because that's good because I get to play the game and I'll enjoy playing the game, but it's not the focus that I was trying to put myself into in terms of having some nicely painted models. Now, in truth, I've only really sort of done one actual proper in the ED-SKaR Paints Good series where I really focus on one model, paint it to the best of my ability and actually push my skills in terms of painting. I'm not looking to become a competition painter, but I am looking to kind of expand the styles of painting that I can do. It's an artistic hobby and I like the art. There's been several other models where aspects of a model or the process of a model has been kind of in line with that, spending longer and kind of focusing on color theory, focusing on the procedure, focusing on the feel or the artistic expression of a model, various things like that, but it's not been the whole model. The Dakota Skylar was the only one where that entire model was in that vein. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about the stuff that I haven't painted yet, and so I need to grab all of these out, dig through them and count them all up, which I shall do off camera. This entire bookcase filled with models. What a pile of opportunity. I have so many models that I could just paint at any point, and I have been painting, and that is good. But let me sort that out and let's skip to the big table downstairs where we can have a closer look. Okay, a little bit of a change of plan, although I have my notes here of all of the grey pile, the unpainted stuff. I thought I'd have a look at a little charcuterie board, a little sampling of some of the things that I've painted this year, because I've noticed something. I've noticed a few things, actually, that I think are quite interesting about how I've been painting this year. Amongst other things, I have painted a little bit of terrain. Now, I'm not really one for terrain. I don't have a lot of terrain. Just having a few bits, just enough to make a couple of gaming tables in some different styles. Ratman from up north, he got me some trees in a little stream, so that's pretty cool. And I'm really happy with these actually. It's a little wicker fence. And this will make for a nice little whimsical village for games like Moonstone, for things like Dungeons and Dragons or that kind of thing. And I think I'll be working on some more science fiction terrain as well in the coming year, but these are just slow burn kind of things. As a lot of that is 3D printed, I have noticed the vast majority of the stuff that I've been buying this year is 3D printed, but I've also ended up with quite a lot of the Mantic's Vault. And here's an example of that. This is a bunch of misprints that I put together to make the... I was calling it the Naiad Worm Rider. I don't think it's the Naiad. I think it's one of the other factions, but it's a Worm Rider for Kings of War. I've also got this gribbly brain, nasty looking thing. I love this thing. I have done some recording on this. I'm not sure how I'm going to frame the video for it, but the way I did this brain was pretty interesting actually. I like that. And although a lot of the Mantic's Vault stuff that I've been doing has been for others, I did get a couple myself, and that includes the ships, particularly the Orc ships for Kings of War Armada, because I just really like the Orc ships. This particular one was digitally kit bashed. I used bits of some non-Mantic kits like the little canvas thing here, but I also used some of the other Orc ships and scaled them up and down to fit this particular one, so that's pretty cool. But all of these 3D prints, all of the Mantic stuff is from this year, and yeah, I've painted them kind of almost immediately. Not necessarily straight away, but relatively quickly. I've also got this. This is a crystal from Thingiverse. I'm desperately trying to find where I got this because it's really cool and I want to credit the artist. But this will be for Moonstone as well as things like Zona Alpha. This kind of floating crystal that some character can try and get inside to get an artifact or a Moonstone shard, or they can climb up onto it. That's pretty cool. Related to 3D printing, this particular example is a 3D print, but I've done a lot of plastic models and resin models, cast resin models for Bolt Action. Obviously I'm playing Bolt Action, so there's a lot of that going down as well. I suspect in terms of numbers, the Bolt Action stuff has been quite prominent this year, although I haven't kept track of it. Simply just because I'm painting them quite quickly. Even this was painted in a fairly simple and quick technique. Before this was painted, this looked absolutely dire and I was ready to throw it away, but now that it's painted, it kind of looks good enough. It's not great, it's not perfect, but it looks good enough. And some other 3D prints include, I had some fun with 52 Miniatures style of doing Orc's skin and Goblin skin for this little Wolf Rider. That was a lovely little one, but again, I found this model, 3D printed it and painted it up within a week. And so we're kind of going back to that theme of, yes, I'm acquiring models, whether I'm buying kits or I'm 3D printing stuff, and I'm immediately painting them up. Also, there is RevWorks Minis, The Remnant Chronicles. It's a science fiction game set in the kind of the expanding human empire and the various other human factions that are opposing that. And they've got some automata, sort of robot things that are really cool, and some science fiction infantry sculpted by Divic Designs, someone I've worked with a couple of times before, so that's really cool stuff. And actually popping back to Mantic Games for a couple more things, I have been looking at doing some purely environmentally lit models. So on this character, her skin is not painted as skin, her weapon is not painted as weapon, her armor is not painted as armor. It is all this purple and pink environmental light. I also made a nice little backdrop for her. I like this. I will have to do some more of these. And in this one, which is just come out in the last video or the video before, a glowing demon host kind of coming up out of a portal in the ground sort of thing, glowing green from the top and red from underneath. Really like that, but it's just the two-directional lights on the character. There's pretty much nothing else there. and that's an interesting idea. And these two sort of lean into my concept this year of kind of painting specific models in a more artistic style. And in some ways, like I'll show with my favorite of the year is the Gakota Skylord. This is a traditional style of painting for miniatures. I really enjoyed the process. It took a long time. I kind of went back and redid things. I always talk about going back and redoing things, but it's usually just a little touch up. With this, I actually went back and kind of, I didn't repaint fully any section, but I really did go back to clean stuff up much more than I usually would. I put more effort into each individual part of the model to try and get the detail and so on and so forth. And this is what I meant, or this is what I thought I meant when I was talking about painting good, painting to a better standard. It's that kind of modern mini painting way of doing things. But these two models and some others as well, I've really realized that that's not the only way of being artistic, and you can take models, in this case with a purely environmental light, but in other artistic styles as well, and just experiment with all sorts of fun things. Because just because this is the traditional way and this is what we think of when we talk about a well-painted model, although I'm passable at least, this is not the only way of doing things, and you can do interesting, fun things like this as well. And this certainly is something that I want to do again in different ways over the next year. Another one in a more artistic style. This is not necessarily throwing down to put in as much time as I can to make everything absolutely perfect. And it's also not an environmentally lit one. But rather, this was a focus on kind of the color choices. So the inspiration for the model was her hair. I wanted a kind of bright, punky blue, as is fashionable at the moment. It's pretty cool hair colouring. I'm seeing a lot and I really like it. And I thought, what would be a good way of integrating that into a whole model? Well, if I'm doing a greeny blue, I can probably do the triads. So I've got a dark browny orange and a very dark purple and a dark bluey green. So I've got orange, purple and green as the secondary triad, highlighted up in a few different ways, and I think this looks really good. Can't wait for the video on this one to come out. My submarine sea base, which is literally just a sculpted sea base that I made out of milliput, and I painted a dark shadow to indicate that the submarine was under the surface. That was a little bit of fun. People seem to like that one. But here again, we can start to talk about what I mean when I'm saying that the new models I'm acquiring are the new models that I'm painting. So I got, here's a kind of pure example of it, the Edge Miniatures Wasteland Elves set, and they're really cool. I love the kind of the armor that they're wearing, I love the bikes that they're riding. Really good for post-apocalyptic stuff. I've done a bit of kit bashing with some of them. This is a robot rat thing that's pretty fun. And I ended up printing 12 or 14 bikes. I even found a little post-apocalyptic Vespa on Thingiverse, so I've done that as well. But I've only actually painted these 3 of the 13, 14, however many I've got. And we'll come back to that as well in a few moments when I look at what I haven't finished painting. But these are all, again, new models. And here are some other examples of kind of post-apocalyptic or other styled models. They are new models that I've acquired. I've 3D printed Mad Max. This is actually also a 3D print. This is from this is the sample model from Monsieur Blackmore's Kickstarter, and these are printed this year, and I've painted them pretty much straight away. And this is a running theme that I'm hoping you're noticing. But whilst I have painted a lot of models that are acquired in this year, either 3D printed or bought, I do have some models, and these are some examples that I have from a little while ago, from not acquired this year, acquired previously. This is Project Z Biker that I got a couple of years ago from Amos Quill. This is Foxtrot, who is definitely not Furiosa, from Hassle-Free Miniatures. Really like this one, fantastic model. I'm going to have to get some more from Hassle-Free because their sculpting is very good. This one is an oddity because it's a board game model. And actually I think a miscast board game model. There's some real bad damage around his shoulder. Some kind of hobgoblin-y thing, possibly a dwarf. But I painted him up relatively quickly and with a more striking style than I'm used to. And I think this is a sort of style that I want to lean into. I am painting some older models. I'm going into my pile of opportunity, which is good. And it kind of proves the value of the pile of opportunity. But most of what I'm painting, oddly, is brand new stuff. The vast majority of this, like a lot of these 3D printed things from Mantic or from other sources, the Edge Miniatures stuff as well, they are all new things. The Remnant Chronicles as well, they were kind of printed this year and painted this year, and so on and so forth. And so I do need to look at what I've got on my list here of unpainted grey stuff, because it seems to be, and we can look at the numbers in a bit, it seems to be that I'm getting really excited about the new things that I'm acquiring, but I'm not painting everything that I'm acquiring. And when I look back at the older stuff I've got, whilst I'm excited about painting and I'm getting into the swing of painting certain things, I am picking the odd one out here or there and painting some of the older stuff. But on the whole, I am actually slowly acquiring more things. The number keeps going up, as it would seem. So I'm going to pop these away and let's have a closer look at some of the stuff that I haven't yet painted. Right then, now that I've distracted you all with some of the stuff that I have painted, well, we have to do this eventually, don't we? This is the start of my unpainted stuff, of which there is quite a bit. And I've mentioned I've got my notes here about the full list. We can look at that in more detail later on. But for the moment, we can start with the largest part of my collection of unpainted stuff. You could argue that this is actually multiple categories. The biggest sections here are my Japanese infantry for bolt action, then my German infantry for bolt action, and then also have my Cossacks, which I really need to get on with because I was really enjoying the Cossacks. I need to get some sculpting done for some of their fur coats, but I actually already have the horses ready, so I can kind of get those painted. Haven't done many horses, so it should be an interesting, different way of doing some painting. The joke about me doing more Italians, it has come true again, because here is the definite last of my Italians, and I've actually given away some of the other Italians to make sure that this is the last of my Italians. There will be no more after this, but this is a squad of Alpini, the Alpine mountain troops, which will be good. A little bit of contrast to the other units in my Italian army. And then here are just some of the dregs, the kind of individual models. I think a lot of these are special edition models, or they're stuff that I've won at the local tournament. I actually have Montgomery, good old Monty, but these aren't necessarily anything specifically interesting. They're just kind of Brits and Americans and leftovers from other things. The bulk of this is the Germans and Japanese. There. The Germans, Japanese, which is the real numbers of this. When it comes to looking at the Japanese, I might actually need some more Japanese, because there's a lot here, but if I want to go for an infantry heavy Japanese army, I will need some more. I also have some more terrain. As I mentioned, I don't really do enough terrain, but I have a couple of pieces on the way. There's a little cottage barn sort of thing, and the fisherman's village, which is on Thingiverse, and looks really cool because the fisherman knows how to make a boat, so when he made his roof, he made it in the same way. And this, just like the other one, is a nice, slightly whimsical, slightly realistic little cottage for my village. Now, I'm not counting terrain, so I should probably not spend too long looking at these. But I just mentioned them because they're just another project that I'm working on. I think with this village, I might, for the first time ever, have a complete gaming board, whereas in the past I have little bits of terrain, and I've kind of, whenever I play, I have a mishmash of stuff on the table at any given moment. But this might actually be the first time I have a single coherent game board, which will be nice. And would you look at that? So these are the last bits of the Mantic's vault that I will be acquiring. I did say, like, a few years back, I looked at my collection and I'm like, I don't really need anything. I don't want anything else. There's no gaps in my collection except maybe a giant. Well, now with the Mantic Vault, I have a giant. It is 190, yeah, just about 190 millimeters tall. This thing is absolutely huge. In the Mantic Vault, they supplied all the different variants of it, but I went with the Frost Giant. So he's got a big fur coat with a big spiky mace thing. I might even paint those as ice crystals. They've got more of a rock texture, but there will definitely be snow involved in this. I did use the standard head because I think I prefer this one over the Frost Giant's head, but that is a massive model and is going to take a while to paint, even if I do it relatively simply, so I'm going to have to kind of plan for that. But elsewise, in the Mantic Vault, we mentioned that I've done a lot of the boats for Kings of War Armada. Well, there's two more, the last two that I haven't quite finished yet. These are the Smashers, the Orc Smashers. And all of the other ships, like I mentioned, all the other ships have been painted. It's just these two that need to be done. I also have, for anyone who saw my £50 challenge on the Mantic Vault, the Aberration is one of the models that won. It was one of the, I think, 3 models I picked from Mantic. And now this particular model is on the Mantic Vault, so I have managed to get one. And there's also, again, this is for the Northern Alliance as well. I kind of like a lot of the Northern Alliance stuff. But this is an angry Nord riding on an angry beast thing. Got lots of teeth and nastiness. It's a really cool model. But one of my favourites, actually, from the Mantic Vault, and this came in the first couple of months with the Orc ships, it's a Halfling blimp. It's the Aeronaut, I believe the unit is called, and it's a little halfling dude with a ginormous moustache and Biggles jacket and glasses, riding in this tiny little blimp, and it's absolutely adorable. And I've painted the blimp, and I have not painted the halfling. We shall notice this as we go on, that I start painting things and then I don't necessarily finish painting things, and that goes for both individual models and also whole projects. But yeah, there's some of the Mantic Vault that I have ended up with that is really quite cool, particularly the Aberration. The Giants, definitely a good model, quite enjoying that, but just all these other ones are just really interesting stuff. Now here is something that is a little bit different from my usual fare. I have not really done historical models up until I was doing Bolt Action, in which case I've done actually now quite a lot of World War II historical models. I do have Queen Boudica, of course, and there's a couple of other things here or there. But these almost can't really count as historical models because they're kind of current in a lot of ways. So the vast majority of what I'm talking about here is the Airfix Operation Herrick set, which is a 1:48 scale, so a little bit bigger than my normal models, but they're the British Army from Operation Herrick in Afghanistan. So I've got a squad of 8, or a rifle section of 8. I've also got 2, these are from Warlord Games, the Spec Ops team. I also grabbed out some of their SA-80s because I want to have an LSW in the squad, so I'll give the LSW to one of these guys. The scale is close enough that this will probably work. But they also came with a Land Rover, I believe it is, a helicopter, and in the same scale but from a different company, I have, over here, a Challenger MBT. a very modern, currently in service vehicle. I believe this is the Challenger 1, so strictly speaking, this variant of it's out of service, arguably. All of the Challenger 2s and 3s are just Challenger 1s with bits bolted on. This is from a model company called Academy in Korea. Now, my first ever airsoft gun, my first ever proper airsoft gun was an Academy SA-80. And so I've got an Academy SA-80 somewhere gathering dust, because I really should play airsoft some more. I do like that, but this is now a British tank from that same company as a model kit. That's not really important. What's important is that I'm going to end up with a whole bunch of modern or kind of pretty much current serving equipment for British Army, Squad of Infantry, the Challenger, I've got Land Rover, and I've got a Lynx helicopter as well. Another something that I got oddly excited about and then half did and put aside, these are the Edge Miniatures Wasteland Elves, Wasteland Elf Bikers. It's a set of 4, and I ended up printing it 5 times, I think. I gave some as gifts to some friends, and I've kit bashed a few of the riders to make some different variants. So I've got one with Molotov, I've got one throwing a chain around somewhere, here we go, one throwing a chain around. But these are actually really cool. I got these specifically because their armour is aesthetically the right style for the Wasteland, the kind of knockoff Mad Max kind of 1980s films that I really loved. They have just the right feel for them, so I picked them up for that. I painted up all the bikes, I did the nice bases as well. It's odd that I do the bases and haven't finished the model, because usually it's the other way around. So the last models that I'm going to show you are a little bit shameful for me, because 25 years ago, I swore off of Games Workshop I would never go back and never buy anything else. Well, I have in fact bought something else. The Orc Squig Hog Riders. I have an extensive 40k Orc army from the late 90s and early 2000s, and this is a much more modern kit. But I actually only want one model from this set. I'm not building a squad because I don't play 40k, so there's no point in that. This one. Because this squig has been injured or just randomly upgraded, because orcs tend to do that, with a motorcycle rear wheel. And that's just hilarious, and I love it. So I'm going to build up and paint this specific model as one of the bikes for kind of to go with the other Wasteland bikes and things for my racing game. Because my racing game is primarily a jet bike racing game, but it's miniatures agnostic, and you can use wheeled bikes or cars or micro machines or anything else you want. So that's definitely going to suit there. What I do with the others, I haven't 100% decided yet, and it may be the case that my friends end up getting them dumped on them, because that does tend to happen when I buy a set of models and I only want one of. But yes, for shame, I have paid money to Games Workshop. I really should stop doing that. Not a good idea. So with all of that kind of looked at and done, what we actually should really be focusing on is my notes, my numbers, and all of the going through boxes that I did off screen, because that takes a lot of time. And what does it mean in terms of the grand totals? And I noticed something, and this is why I showed earlier the stuff I have painted this year, because a lot of that is new models. New models that I'm acquiring are being kind of top of the list when it comes to painting them. And models that are getting older, even 2 or 3 years ago, certainly the stuff that's 20 years old, is stuff that I'm sort of accidentally letting slip through and not getting around to paint. And I'm really sad that I haven't kept track of the exact numbers of stuff I have painted, because I actually think that would be interesting to have a look at. How much of what I'm painting is new versus older stuff. But it's certainly in the region of at least 60 models this year are brand new that I've painted almost straight away, ranging from bold action models, some of the Mantic stuff, some of the 3D prints, some of the bikers, some of the cyberpunk stuff I've done as well, other things. That's kind of the specifics I don't have a full list of, unfortunately, but it is definitely true that new stuff is taking priority when it comes to what I'm painting. And so maybe as we look into the next year, what I need to maybe focus on is picking out the older stuff. So the Japanese are now kind of, for me, these count as older models because they're not from 2025, they're from 2024. So I need to make sure that I paint these guys up and don't leave them to languish. Same with the bikers. They are newish, but they've fallen by the wayside, and I don't want to let them fall behind because they're really cool and I can use them to test play my racing game. But I should also pick out some of the really old stuff, some of the 3, 4, 5-year-old stuff, but also the 20-year-old stuff that I have in my collection, because there are some genuinely good models in there. Right, let's stop nattering about all of this stuff and start looking at the grand total numbers. So a few years back, when I started this little kind of counting my pile of opportunity, I had 200 models roughly, and the year later I had 300 models roughly, and the year later I had 500 models, and that's a massive increase, and I noticed that. And so I set myself the challenge in that following year to paint 2 models for every one that I acquired. And I didn't quite manage that, but I did paint a lot more than I acquired. And so that just about 500 dropped to the just about 400 mark of last year. Now from last year to this year, I sort of set myself the challenge to paint individual models, pick them out specifically to paint in a more artistic style. And like I've mentioned, it didn't really work out how I wanted to. There's sort of only one that fit that description, although there are several other models that also kind of fit that theme, if not the strict definition I set myself out for. But because I'm painting individual models a little bit more than I would, rather than batch painting massive armies like I did last year, that does mean that the number has gone up. However, not by as much as it might have done. And I'm not sure necessarily why, but this year's total is 442. So that's an increase of sort of just less than 50-ish, I think, over last year, which is not that big of an increase. And certainly I've painted over 100 models this year. Probably, again, I haven't kept track of numbers properly. Again, I don't think it's unreasonable. I am buying a sensible amount of things. I'm keeping track of how much I'm spending. I'm not having enough money to pay rent sort of thing. I'm not being irresponsible. I am putting money into my hobby. And if in the future I do get to the point where I need to tighten up and stop buying things, well, here's 40 Japanese that I can just sit down and paint. I don't need to buy new things if I have the old things. But that said, I also have 442 unpainted models, and I should probably paint some of those up. And I think what I shall set myself the challenge this year, coming up in 2025, I'm going to set myself the challenge of painting older things, going through my collection and picking out models that I've had for a while. Maybe they're like the Japanese and the Wasteland Elves here. Maybe it's stuff from last year. Maybe it's stuff from 2 or 3 years. There's plenty of models that I've been acquiring recently, as you can see by that number going from 200 to 500. There's loads of models in there. But also the stuff from 20 years ago, because there's some really old stuff in my collection that's genuinely good, and I would pretty much guaranteed I would enjoy painting it. It might just be an interesting thing for you guys to follow along with as you paint your own stuff. So before I just end up rambling forever, I should probably end the video. Thank you very much to everyone for watching. Thank you for everyone who's watched my videos over the course of the last year. It has been a wild ride, and it has actually been a lot of fun. I have enjoyed the videos that I've made. Some of them have done very well actually this year, and my channel has certainly grown a little bit, although the average video is still getting roughly the same amount of views as before, so it's not all like amazing or anything. But thank you to everyone who's popping past every video, because there are a few of you who are coming through, and quite a few of you who are posting comments on every video, so thank you to those guys as well. But like I said, I'm going to start rambling, so I should probably finish up. My challenge is to paint the older stuff. I have 442 models, as I've mentioned, and I have plenty of models to paint for this coming year, so I shall get on with some of that. If you have seen anything in this video that you think I should paint, do post that in the comment section below. If you have any other suggestions, you can post that in the comment as well. I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching.